I'd like to call to order and convene public hearing on the 2022-2023 general fund budget at 7 p.m. And forgive us for being a little late. We had a presentation and it went a little longer, so I appreciate y'all being patient and letting us finish that presentation. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Ross.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board and our community. I want to also thank our staff for being here. We have Connie Graham and Leanne, who are here from accounting and finance to help us go through this information and report if there are any questions. But we're going to be going over the third and final reading of our 2022-2023 general fund budget. Some of the items to note was very difficult during this process is that we were managing multiple versions of the appropriation. We had the House version, the Senate version, the House 2 version, Conference Committee, and there was also talk about reverting back to the old plan. So juggling all of those kept us really on our toes. We appreciate you bearing with us as we went through this process, moving to a third reading to get as much information as we could. As we look at what comes out of the Conference Committee, and it's more aligned to the House 2 plan, we're looking at what was basically ratified on June 16th. We know that we're still receiving information, and we've asked that we are able to, again, come back as we did last year, actually, and this year, and do a budget amendment. And so we have not changed any of the revenue projections from the previous reading. So first, second, and third readings have the same revenue projections. One of the things I think that we need to look at as some major highlights in this education formula funding is the shifts in the cost of student classifications as outlined in section 592040 that defines the designations and the weights. And so if you can follow me on that roller coaster ride where initially career and tech was 1.29 as a designation, and then it moved to 1. A lot of you all were active in advocating for career and technical education. We appreciate that. It went back up to 1.2. So we did have recovery there. The weights, so the additional weight in terms of poverty went from 0.2 last year to 0.5. If we look at the designation with special education, this is very important. We had a range in special education of a designation from 1.9 to 2.58. Now it's 2.6 across the board. However, speech has been removed from that. So we receive more money, but the speech services have to come into the general fund. The requirement for $40,000 minimum for the teachers with bachelor's with 0. If you remember, in ours, we were 39,853, but you'll see in this budget how we wanted to provide an increase as much as possible to our teachers. But we're still a hold harmless district. So of the 6 across the state, District 5 is one of those hold harmless districts. So we still have to contend with that. If we look at some important numbers here, our 135th day report, or ADM, is up. So we're at 16,735 on our ADM. Again, we have that 45th day report that allows a different adjustment. What's interesting, again, is this year we've seen in our 180 report, it's not a budgetary number, but it is a marker that we had an increase, 52 students. Usually we have a decrease from 135 to 180. So we're going to project an increase at that 45. Again, we have moved the teacher salary schedule to 41.6. So that's the first-year teacher, zero experience, first sale, we're at $41,600. And so when we look at that, that's almost a 4.4% increase from where it was last year. That's in addition to the NARI program, which we discussed earlier in the year. That's an additional, it can be total almost 10%. So we're excited about what we're doing for beginning teachers in the field. For staff have a 2% increase raise and plus step for all eligible staff. And so that's almost a 4% increase for all staff, 2% for all, and if you're eligible for the step, you get an additional 2%. We will continue our national board supplement of $5,000, and our bus driver's salary starts at $15.36. So, if we look at our revenue, in terms of local revenue, we have 76,348,334. If you look at our state revenue, the aid to classroom, that new formula that we are working on now, provides us $80 million. We are seeing increases in Tier 3 homestead exemptions, so we actually received almost $400,000 additional money for this fiscal year. Don't know how the penny is going to do in the future, but we're excited about those increases there and project that that will continue. And so we bring in this budget at $212,481,590. Again, these are based on our 135th day enrollments. If we break down the revenue, you asked me for variances, and so that's at your desk. It'll be posted online as well, kind of explaining some of the variances in the expenditures. Well, this is a little bit of the variances on the revenue side. You can see from the increases that we are factoring in on the local taxes, a small reduction in terms of tuition payments that we will receive or interest. You'll see the major increase is on our new state funding model, so being up 7% there, and I think the next major jump, if you look at our other financing sources, how you take almost an 80% decrease there. And that's because all of those lines of the EFA have been rolled up into the new formula. So that's why it doesn't balance out for us. Again, this formula is really different in terms of its weighting for pupils in poverty. District 5 having a 45% poverty index doesn't really work out for us. So, but that's where we've created our revenue under the House 2 version. If we go on the expenditure side, you can see that 87.36 or 87.4% of our budget is in salary and fringe. You'll see increases in fringe. As we look at trying to balance it out, we're going to take decreases in contractual services, and that other objects line you'll see will be decreases in terms of travel, membership, conferences, roughly $300,000 in that area. So this is kind of a breakdown of that. Salaries increased 3.3% or 3.4%. The fringe, and we'll go over some of that in detail, that's up 9%. And the major decrease, again, in other objects, down 21%. We did not, in our COVID year, we did not do a lot of traveling, did not do a lot of conferences and and hotel costs and things of that nature. And so we had less expenditures there. We're going to bring that back down, monitor it for next year. So as outlined in the Education Finance Act of 1977, we bring in a balanced budget, projected revenue, $212,481,590, which meets our projected expenditures. So let's look at some of the items that are included in this budget. We bring this budget in with no increase in operation millage. So we are asking for no change in the operation millage. If we look at the total operating assessed value of $301 million, which is a 2.7 increase. Some of our models on debt service side have a 1.5% increase, 1.5% increase over time. So this year represented 2.7. There'll be another assessment in July again, we've talked about doing a mid-year amendment, and we'll have more information at that time. Again, we're seeing an increase in the homestead exemptions, particularly the penny on Tier 3. We have, and we thank you as a board for agreeing to the mental health coordinator. To have that position for our district, I think is going to be key to the umbrella that we're trying to create to provide for the whole child in our district. Last year, you saw the importance of preparing for COVID. We did not have a year-round nurse. You all are providing for us to have a year-round nurse to deal with the COVID protocols that were needed. And so that allows for this. And then the NARI program. This is $2,500 a year for the first 3 years of service. So that's a commitment to teachers in our district. That takes that first sale from last year and increases it 10%. So with the raise, the step, and the NARI program, that's almost a 10% raise at that first sale. So we're appreciative of that. We have a 1% increase in retirement, an 18.1% increase in health care. And so while a lot of our funds are going to this, it's important, we're excited to maintain these. The health care, I'm looking at Leanne on this starts in January. So that we do open enrollment in October, and so this will kick in January. So while it says 18.1, we're really balancing half of that for the whole year, as it has a different cycle. We will recommend a mid-year review of this budget and look at possible amendments at that time. Again, getting the information from June 16th and seeing how that plays out. We're loading everything at 75%. That gives us space and ability to react. That gives us some agility in this budget. We will look at the 45-day report and see what kind of adjustments we would have coming in there. And then we can take in the information from the tax assessment, the final tax assessment this month. So we feel confident that we can operate. This is the most conservative presentation of, we believe more revenue will come, but we're going off the very conservative 212 revenue stream. In terms of, again, this does not require any millage increase, but we do want to, kind of outline the millage rate increase limitations as in section 61320 of South Carolina Code of Laws. So if you look at our allowable percentage of increase at 5.96%, you see our 246.1 meals that are needed to serve this budget. We, under that law, are allowed 14.67 meals. That's the increase, the cap. Now, there's a look-back law that allows you to go 3 years at the 3 property years looking back. So that would include 11.16 mills of look-back. So the estimated value of 1 mill in District 5 is $300,369. Again, that's just information only. It is not needed for this budget. No increase. So in terms of our fund balance, if we look at our fund balance by June 30th, we're looking at $51,205,287 allocated in terms of what we cannot spend, what is assigned but has not been used at this time. You have $35 million, $35.5 million in unassigned, and we believe another injection of $1.25 million into the fund balance. I will be asking outside of the general fund for 2 assignments. The first, again, proposed assignment is in the area of staffing for 3 nests. We've seen some promise in our nest interventions at Irmo High School. So the first assignment of $1.5 million would be an assignment for a nest at Irmo High School, Irmo Middle School, and an elementary nest to serve the entire district. This would be housed at Dutch Fork Elementary School. And so that's the Foundations Academy. So that's the assignment of $1.5 million. Also, I'll be asking for another assignment, and this is a proposed fund balance assignment for a snack program, an everyday snack program for every student in School District 5. This is $1.3 million. As you know, the USDA program providing those disbursements for every student to eat free, that's going away this year. I looked at an extension, that was for the summer program, but when we start the next school year, we, for the last 2 years, and then I'm a parent in this district, we don't qualify for free or reduced meals, but we've enjoyed sending our children to school with knowing that breakfast and lunch will be provided. Well, that will go away, and we want to make sure that no child goes without any meal. And so there will be, pending the approval of this, there will be a meal, at least a snack, provided to every student every day. So those are the 2 assignments that we have. So we would ask to bring basically 4 points of approval today. The first one is the approval of the 2022-2023 general fund budget as presented. Approval of the operating millage rate at 246.1 mills. We can set the debt service millage rate at 69.5 mills as well. And then approval of the 2 assignments, the 24 FTEs needed for the 3 NEST programs of $1,529,112, and the $1.3 million assignment for the snack program for all students. Madam Chair, members of the board, that concludes the I was also asked about ESSER, so I wanted to, this information is online, so you can go online. We're going to update, I think, June 30th for the next quarter, so you will have that updated. Just to be reminded, there have been 3 rounds of federal aid that we have received under ARP and ESSER, the CARES Act, and ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 of the Elementary Secondary School Education Relief Funds. These are online for the public to review. In total, we have received $23,292,000 $293,587.72. At this point, we have either committed, meaning encumbered, or have spent $11,445,801.82. That's 50.9% of our total allotment has been either spent or encumbered. If you look at the entire duration of ESSER, because the last day that we're on the hook is September 30th, 2024. From the first day, March 16th, 2020, that's 1,659 days. Right now, we're at 836 days in that span. So we're at 50% or 50.4% of the time in all of this funding, with 50.9% of it being expended. So gives us some options to play to use in the second half of this. So I just wanted to make the public aware that we are using these funds and that how we have spent it to date. So with that, Madam Chair, members of the board, that concludes the presentation, and I stand for questions before the public participation.
Would we entertain a motion so we can discuss it, to pass it?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we approve the budget for the 2022 to 2023 school year as presented by Dr. Ross.
Is that a second?
Isn't this supposed to happen in our regular meeting? We're not supposed to make a motion for the budget
Oh,
right now.
I thought-
There still has to be public participation.
Oh, that's right.
And
You're
it's
right.
a
Thank you,
different part of the
Ms. Hines, you're
We'll
correct.
approve it on the action for 17.
Yeah, it's on action. And so let's do questions before, yeah. Well, next it says public participation. Should we do that before questions? That's why
Well, this might be helpful to somebody who was going to ask a question.
okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so one of the questions that I had was, okay, Dr. Ross, you said we had 87.36% of our funds was spent in salaries and fringe. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to weigh off cost of living versus competitiveness. That's the two things that we have to do to make sure. Okay, I know that on the board, when I believe, and I was going back into some fog here, but I think we were at 89% a couple of years ago. Okay, so that 1.6% is a lot of money, and it's very important. So my question is, how are we doing on the percentage of our total budget to salary and fringe compared to other entities such, and nationally? Are we above that, below that? How are we doing on competitiveness?
I think I would say we're in line in that 85 to 87% in salary and fringe that especially school districts would have. I think looking at what we're going to see in terms of inflation and the cost of supplies and materials, we're going to need that other 12% to handle increases in that area. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just want to know, if our district needs to do something to make us more competitive and we have a little bit more to spend, then that would, right now, I know that is critical for us because we're trying to attract, the best first-time employees here.
I agree, and I'll go on record as saying this. At the mid-year adjustment, I think we would have a better picture of things that we can do. One of the things I think we want to give ourselves some flexibility with is we still have this hold harmless proviso hanging over our head. And if we assume all of that and recurring, and that's the way, then we'll be in some tough water. The other thing is, fast forward to November or December, when you gave those bonuses around that Black Friday, that was a huge boost in terms of keeping people with us. when you approved the $50 Fridays for the second semester. Those were a huge boost. So by being in this position now, we could come out with increases to this in terms of it not being 87.3, that it goes up because you've had maybe a $50 Friday round or another bonus round that would increase this number from 87.3 to a higher number. But we would have that flexibility without worrying about if that proviso went away next year, how could we provide that?
Ms. Hines?
I see that the administration recommendations has 4 recommendations, and in our board packet, it had 3. I have a question about number 3. I just want to confirm that you said that 1.5 million and plus is for having 3 NEST programs?
Yes, ma'am. And in the board packet, I think I combined both assignments. You can split them up if you wanted to, but we combine them in the board packet. But there's really 4, and those are the 3 NEST programs. So the NEST program that we did at IRMO this year was not we used savings from unhired teachers to make that work. So we want to actually create its own line this year, do one at the middle school and an elementary school one.
Is that good? Ms. Moore?
Piggyback off of what she just said, I saw that are we also talking about I saw that you had administrators. So will the NEST have their own principals, is what you currently, where you have admin assistants that were listed? So they won't, within the NEST, issues won't be sent to the school's principal, they'll be handled in a different way?
Great question. So the principal still has total control by law of that site and their students. It's additional boots on the ground to handle any disciplinary issues, referrals to the clinical counselors, someone in the administrative role to handle those. The taking a nest and putting it at, for instance, let's say Dutch Fork Elementary School, they're going to need someone specifically designed for that. And talking with the principal, they know that that person can also help at the school proper. So they're under the under that principal on the ground there. Dr. Turner, if there's something I missed in my response, I didn't mean to jump you there. Okay.
That good? Ms. Huddle?
In visiting schools, I've seen several times where snacks were given out in the classroom, and I was kind of curious, how has that been done in the past? Who's been paying for that?
I don't know if we have an answer where those snacks. I know we have some snack pack programs, and I want to thank our. We've had a lot of community support. Our foundation has been a huge part in those snack pack programs. And I think, a lot, in the beginning of the year, we asked $5, so that donation, you can make that that monthly or paycheck deductions to the 5 for 5 program for our foundation. A lot of that comes to a big part of that was our snack pack program. Our social workers have been really Johnny on the spot of making sure that those kids get it. And we have, with the USDA program, it really put us in good positions to provide these free meals for students. And my worry is, as that goes away, the lead time, even with the extension and the summer meals, for the summer, we began orders as early as January, February for summer meal programs. So this gives us an opportunity to kind of get ahead of the game there. But to answer your question, I know the snack pack program is a big part of that. You'll see those carts rolling through the hall delivering those snacks to everyone. With this program, we're going to leave it up to the site principal on how they're going to roll it out. It can be as easy as when a child is at lunch and they don't have a lunch that day, they can pull a snack off the cart or out of the line, and it's free, doesn't cost anybody.
Any questions down this way? Ms. Huddle?
I don't have a question, but I do, if I could make a comment. he probably won't toot his own horn, I'm going to start with the South Carolina School Board Association, because a lot of times people wonder, what do they do? Are they worth it? And going back to the budget, if Debbie Elmore with the South Carolina School Board Association had not pointed out to us and other districts what was happening in that House budget, I don't know that it would have gotten fixed, quite honestly. And as far as tooting his own horn, a lot of people don't know, but Mr. Lovelace took it upon himself it was too late. It was too late with the House, but took it upon himself to get a meeting with Senator Cromer. And Senator Cromer brought in the right people, and they did not realize they had a problem until that meeting. And I don't know how much effect that had, but I know it certainly didn't hurt. And this budget that we ended up with is so much better for this district, I think to the tune of $20 million than it otherwise would have been. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. You're correct. Did you have your hand up, Ms. Moore? Down this way? Everybody good? I had one. With the nest, if I understood it right, for this budget, that's money from the fund balance.
Yes, ma'am.
And
These would come from the fund.
Right. And all I was seeing is it's more, because if we keep it going, it'll be reoccurring. So when you do the next budget, it would not come from there. This is more of a way to get it started.
Correct. What we wanted to do, we would be over budget on this very conservative line. So we are not assuming we can come back at mid-year and have 3.5. Now we can assume this in reoccurring because we know that and we have that flexibility. But we need to hire teachers now for it. We need to hire staff now for it. So the safest way is to approve it as an assignment now. We come back in mid-year, and now we decide, here's our 45th, here's our new 45 numbers, our tax assessment values. We've seen what our increases are, and we can roll these into general fund.
Good. I'm excited to see that kind of good work going for some of the fund balance instead of it just sitting there. Now, though it is public, if there are no more questions, public participation regarding the budget proposal. Ms.
Madam
Taylor?
Chair, we have one speaker tonight, Ms. Kim Murphy of Chapin, to speak about the fund balance.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Ms. Murphy.
At the last meeting, there was discussion on the general fund budget about the fund balance, which is excess tax dollars over and above the amount necessary to fund the balance that has been collected from taxpayers to operate our schools and to pay our teachers. And an example of using it was presented tonight. But to use it to items not specifically related to operating our schools. As you may know, the fund balance for the general fund at the end of the year, 2000 school year, was over $51 million. What you may not know is at the end of 2000, that was $4.5 million. So I'm requesting tonight that before you use any fund balance money, i.e. taxes essentially over-collected from taxpayers, that you consider policies and procedures that require more accountability and more transparency than the policy manual provides now. What you also may not know is that that $51 million is actually a net number, and that money has been spent or transferred out of fund balance without any accountability, and that's a pretty big problem. And the problem is, until just recently with the new leadership, there have been millions of dollars moved out of fund balance without a vote from the board, without the taxpayers knowing that their money was going to items other than to operate our schools and pay our teachers, and to items other than what is represented at budget public hearings, such as is occurring tonight. And you also may not know that according to footnotes on the financial statements prior to the longtime former board majority and previous superintendents, the excess money collected from taxpayers would be held in reserve with Lexington County Treasurer to be used towards offsetting the next year's budget to operate our schools. No footnotes to allow to spend it on other items. During the past 2 decades, there has been no accountability with how fund balance money is spent. So before any fund balance money is committed to be spent on something other than what is in the general fund budget, please consider appropriate policies in place that require not only accountability but transparency as well. No vote for fund balance to use money for debt service should take place at this meeting. There's discussion about it, but it sounds like that is part of the use of fund balance. And that may be something that should have some more discussion, as well as some of these other programs that are being presented. I think we had a problem with approving a barn for horses before we approve the program. It might be appropriate to approve the program before we approve spending the money on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. If there are no other public participants, we will adjourn the budget meeting.